Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Corinne Zuleger, a transformation and mindset life coach. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit and get into some of that was fun. I like talking about that, but I want to get into some of the really heavy stuff that people can't get elsewhere. This is why I have this show, because they can get some real tools and resources and support just by listening to this. So I have my own questions, but I see we did get a question that came in the chat from someone. And she said, what is one way to assist in forgiving yourself?
Okay, so it's a process of journaling. So what you're going to do is you're going to write out all the different names that for the first portion of it is where you write all the different names of the different people that come immediately. It's like a rapid fire writing, right? So you're going to write 30 different names that immediately pop to your head of people that you need to forgive. What was so interesting the first time I did this is how far back it went.
Oh,
I
really?
think it was maybe 4. Yeah. And so it's pretty interesting when you're just sitting down and I forgive so-and-so for doing this, in kindergarten, or something, right? You don't realize you're carrying that in there,
Yeah.
And then there's a whole process that you go through in writing out that, I lovingly forgive them, release them. And then the second component of it is in the evening part of the day, you're going to write out that you lovingly forgive yourself and all the names that you're used for, that are used for you. So for me, I had nicknames as a child, or it might be mom or mama or, my husband calls me baby or, whatever, right? Whatever it was, all the different names that I have assumed for myself over the years, that I lovingly forgive and release myself also. And it's just it's a process that you go through, and it's over a period of time. So you do it in the morning and you do it over at night, and then you do it for 7 days. And we're looking at releasing ourselves. And the reason because when we carry all of that inside of us, it causes health issues.
Oh, I believe that.
Right, because that goes into that stuffing and that suppressing. So not being able to forgive ourselves, we're carrying around a burden we don't need to be carrying around. Because what's so interesting is that we will keep ourselves on the hook for something that happened 30 years ago, that somebody else has that person who we think we need, that we did something to, they're not even thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not even on their radar. Yeah.
It's not something that you ever need. In fact, I like to burn it. I just burn it and I allow it to be released. And, because that really it's a conversation between you and your creator. It's please forgive me. I did these things I need to be forgiven for. At least I believe that. And release it So every time it goes up in flames, I'm like,
yeah. Wow. I'm really curious about that process. Is there any benefit to going to the person or people if they're available in your life to have a conversation about that? Or would there be would that be good? Or what do you think?
I think it depends on the situation. Often what I like to ask for is, what is the benefit of that? Because is that your ego talking? Is it the ego that wants, I need to be forgiven? Is that coming from a space of that? Or, can I seek forgiveness, do it through the creator, do it through the source, through energy exchange, as opposed to necessarily maybe going to somebody. If you believe that it's a situation where there can be reconciliation, I get, and I guess that would be a choice, right? That you could make, but I would really weigh the pros and cons and ask yourself, really, is this ego talking, or is this coming from my soul that I would like to have forgiveness for this?
Yes, and just kind of see like what would the benefit of that be, kind of explore that a little
Yes.
bit before you acted on
Hmm.
everything. Because the last thing you'd want to do is maybe
Hmm.
cause more harm or more damage, maybe kind of
Right.
assess and see where you are. And that's a great answer. So,
Hmm.
okay, so the next thing I was thinking of, you mentioned way much earlier in the conversation about childhood trauma and how you have this kind of knowledge about 0 to 8 or early childhood. And so can you
Hmm.
kind of just explain like what does that even, I mean, I know in my own definition what like I think that means, because I think there's the extreme trauma, like we think of like a major incident, whether it's a fire or a divorce or abuse or this or that. But there's also little like micro traumas, right? Like small things that build up that most people don't consider trauma, but
Hmm.
it's just like, it could be, oh, I got embarrassed in front of my class when I was doing show and tell when I was in first grade. But
Hmm.
things like that built up, built up, built up, and it never got like resolved. And so it becomes trauma, right? So like when you talk about trauma,
It can.
which type are you talking about, or is it everything?
I'm specifically addressing big T. So, when we're talking about adverse childhood
Mm-hmm.
experiences, this was a study that was done in the 90s. This particular study was done by two doctors, Doctors Felitti and Anda,
Okay.
and they actually kind of like they were working in a weight loss situation. They were doing a weight loss study
Mm.
and happened to trip over. Um, Finding this information, and then they dug deep. Um, so what we're looking for, and I have a list of the questions here. So prior to your 18th birthday, did a parent or an adult in the house often swear at you,
Mm-hmm.
insult you, put you down, humiliate you?
Mm-hmm.
Question number two, did a parent or other adult in the house often push, slap, grab, throw things at you, injure you, ever hit you so hard that you were injured?
Mm-hmm.
The third one, did an adult or person 5 years older than you ever inappropriately touch you, in any sort of sexual manner?
Mm-hmm.
Four, um, did you often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought that you were important or special? Um, did you often feel that you didn't have enough to eat or had to wear dirty clothes or that there was no one there to protect you?
Mm-hmm.
Were your parents too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor? Number six is, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Seven, was your mother or stepmother pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had things thrown at her? Was she ever, physically
Mm-hmm.
harmed in front of you, repeatedly threatened? Um, Number eight, did you ever live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Number nine, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? And number 10, did a household member go to prison?
Mm.
So, with adverse childhood experiences, what that does is um, they use the analogy of having the bear live in your cave. So, our
Mm.
bodies are built fight or flight, right? Or
Mhm.
freeze or fawn. Um, but when the bear lives in your cave, there's no escaping. And so the
Yeah.
body is in perpetual fight or
Mhm.
flight. So what
Yeah.
happens is the body is flooded with cortisol and flooded with adrenaline. And when we are
Mhm.
flooded with those hormones, though the long-term exposure to that causes health repercussions that may not be seen until down the
Mhm.
line, or in children you might see. They might be asthmatic, right? They might be having night terrors.
Mhm.
Um, there might be bedwetting. There's different things like that that can happen.
Mhm.
You were talking like a little bit of like the microaggressions. The second part of this that they look at is, was the child in foster care?
Mm.
Um, did they experience harassment or bullying at school? Um, did the child live with a parent or guardian that died? Um, was the child separated from their primary caregiver through deportation or immigration?
Mhm.
Um, was a child did a child ever have a serious medical procedure or a life-threatening illness? Did they hear, something violent or something awful happen within their neighborhood? Because there's kids that walk to school that it's not safe,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, was your child treated badly because of race, sexual orientation, place of birth, disability, religion? I mean, you and I talked about, sexual orientation. It's like one of the highest reasons why kids commit suicide,
Mm,
because they're being bullied
mhm,
for it.
mhm.
So these things feed into it, all goes to our sympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
right? So they become dysregulated.
Mhm,
And when our bodies are dysregulated, we choose things to numb. What happens is the more we use of that substance to numb or to feel good, to release a dopamine to our brain, because that's what
mm,
food or drugs or alcohol or shopping or that's what's happening.
mhm,
Um, every time you do it, it it lessens the receptivity to the
mm.
receptor. So the more you do it, it wears it down and it wears it down. Then you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So um, exploring this is important because we have the ability within us.
Mhm.
This is where Neuro Encoding comes in,
Right.
and it's been super helpful. And the ramp technique that I use for the subconscious, because from birth till 8 years old, we're a pretty blank canvas. We don't have the prefrontal cortex of the brain developed yet.
Mhm,
And so everything gets stored in the subconscious brain.
mhm, mhm.
What they see, what they smell, what they taste, what they touch. It can be from TV, it could be from music, it could be from the neighbors, it could be from kids at school, but it all gets stored in there. So you may not have a conscious awareness of
Right.
what's in there,
Yeah.
right? But it's wreaking havoc on your health.
Mhm.
Um, that's what happened to me. Just actually, a few months ago, I went to the doctor, and she's like, "How's your stress level?" And I'm like, I don't have stress. I work for myself. I love what I do. My life is
Mhm.
fantastic. I have an amazing husband. I have three beautiful children. My life is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, that's really interesting. That's not what your blood work says.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, what? What? Yeah. So I was a little shook, right?
Mhm.
But there's so much that we can do, right? So when we start to heal these things within our body, meditation, because we can grow our telomeres. That's a whole, I could get
Oh,
into
yeah.
the whole science of
I
all
love
of that,
hearing
but
that. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right. But things like meditation, just sitting in nature, right?
Mhm.
Because sitting in nature is a form of meditation.
Right.
Again, connecting with people. Our skin was made to be touched.
Mhm.
We were made and wired as human beings to connect.
Yeah.
Um, I cannot stress the importance of that enough because isolation is another killer of people,
Mm.
right? So, um, getting into I could talk forever about adverse childhood experiences and
Mhm.
the importance of it. For me, healing obviously a personal journey, and then also healing um, the trauma itself. I don't go deep with people. I'm not here to dig up all the old stuff and make you relive
Mm.
things.
Okay.
We have an awareness of it. Let's take it and we're going to lessen the vibration of it,
Mm.
and give it a little different look, and help you move forward in your life.
Mm.
And um, that to me has been such a rewarding component of it, is being able to see people step into things and out of um, situations where they didn't think it was ever possible to have a different life, right? So I draw a circle. You live in this circle,
Mhm.
and all the people in your circle are the same, right? Because that's your community.
Mhm.
Until somebody jumps out of the circle, steps a toe out of the circle, right? We don't know life looks any different. How do I know it looks any different? If this is the way everybody around me behaves. But now all of a sudden I put my toe out there and I see there's a whole different world out there.
Mm.
And I want more of that, and I want
Mm.
more of that, right? And then my hope is that everybody within the circle is going to take a look at me and go, wow, look at her. Look at her and how she changed her life. I
Mm.
want that.
Yeah.
What did she do?
Yeah.
What did she do?
Right.
If that's possible for her, if she can come from, I had two paths before me, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
What I was told was this, I knew my dad drank a lot, got to be in my teen years and started to understand the word alcoholic. I was able to separate the being from the behavior. I see
Mm-hmm.
that alcohol now in a whole different light,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, or my mom, who really struggled with dealing with that, and then B, you know, was it mental illness or was it a mental health issue because she wasn't living the life of her dreams, right?
Yeah.
She wasn't out with friends. She wasn't allowed to have life. There's so much that goes into that, right? So looking at
Mm-hmm.
those were my two paths. And it was like, huh, but like I wanted more. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted I wanted different.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the out, and the secrets that we keep as women, the secrets that we keep stuffing down, the shame, the guilt, the jealousy, the envy, um, the secrets that we keep from, what's going on within the walls of our house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we stuff them down and we stuff them down and we stuff them down, and then they perpetuate themselves as illness. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to blow the lid off all of that. And like you said, we can't go out and I'm gonna be having open conversations. I have a podcast coming. It's called The Secret
Oh,
Keepers,
awesome.
and this is about having open conversations around these are the secrets I kept. This is what I believed. This is how I
Mm.
healed. Right? It's not just then about open up like grumble session. It's gonna be like this is the path
Yeah.
I took
Right.
to heal this
Mm.
with whatever was in me. So
Mm-hmm.
anyways,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm
Wow,
sorry.
that was
You
no,
probably got
yeah,
all
that
kinds
was
of
a lot,
questions.
and I so appreciate you sharing all that. And I'm a visual person, so as you talk, I imagine all these things, and the ACE. I know it's called ACE. What is it? The adverse childhood
Mhm.
experiences.
Different experiences. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that, and I, relate that to the education that I have. I have a master's in education and health and wellness, so I did study
Mhm.
that a lot, and how that does affect not just like you're kind of talking about it in the context of being an adult, right? The trauma as an adult, but
Mhm.
like in my mind, I'm thinking of the kid. I'm still thinking of the teenager and how they're trying, or younger kid, elementary, middle,
Mhm.
high, going to school, and they're trying to learn, and you can't
Mhm.
learn if your limbic system is on fire and all your,
Right.
your prefrontal cortex is like
Mhm.
offline, and you're in that fight or flight stage, like you're saying, like,
Mhm.
the sympathetic nervous system is just going berserk, right? Your memory, your retention, your learning is just not available. And so then what happens is that,
Yeah.
like that, and I think I might be veering off track a little bit, but it just feels really important right now, is then what happens is those kids, if they start to make bad grades or they get diagnosed with a learning disability or anything
Mhm.
like that, then
Mhm.
they're kind of like labeled as the trouble children or the problem
Oh,
children,
yes.
and they're getting like,
Mhm.
detentions, and they're getting caught for
Yes.
substances and drugs, when
Mhm.
really what they need is something before that. They need some healing, they need some care,
Mm.
they need the bear to be out of the cave, like you said. Like, I love that
Yep.
analogy, and we
Mhm.
can't control their feelings, we can't take the bear out of the cave, but what we can do is
Mhm.
care for the kids that are available to us. So that's why I'm really
Yeah.
passionate about helping teenagers. And I don't specifically deal with trauma, although I'm
Mhm.
capable of it. That's not specifically what I do. But if that is a struggle that
Mhm.
someone's dealing with, I'm like, well, I want to help them, because then it's setting up, like you said, like this path on your life. Like, right, you have this path, and you have this path, or you have this
Yeah.
path. And it's like, I try to get to the path as soon as possible. I work with, I've had as young as
Mhm.
a 9-year-old client, but I typically 13 to 16 or 19. I have some college kids that are clients, and I try to get them on the right path. So by the time they get to adulthood, right, they're not as in that kind of painful space, so to speak, like whatever that is, like the
Right.
hard
Mhm.
space, the one that they're still that
Mhm.
fight or flight, everything that you're talking about. So, I think
Yeah.
it's awesome, because you and I, we both help people, and we both want to heal people, and we both want to give hope to people. And I love the analogy of the toe outside of the circle. it's like, oh, then other people can see that that's possible. Like, all you need to get one little toe, and I want a better life, and I can be like this and be an inspiration to people. So I feel like what you're doing is beautiful and it's fantastic. And Cindy is saying, hello, YouTube Angus and beautiful women. Oh my gosh, it's so great to hear from you. Oh, we have a hello, ladies. How fun. Oh, there's lots of people saying hi. I love it. Oh, lots of emojis, lots of hearts and fire. Yay. Oh, okay. I love it. So we got to rename your upcoming podcast, The Secret Keepers. So that's so cool. I didn't actually know that about you. I'm really excited. I can't wait to find out about that. Okay. So man, I know I kind of jumped off track there for a second. I just threw the plane out the window, but I get excited, when I hear what you're doing, and I feel like you are such an awesome example because you've like lived this life, you've experienced it, and now you're on the other side. Like, you've completely transformed yourself. And so therefore you're able to help, women. So, I guess that would be kind of, I know we're getting close on time. Like, I know in the past you did work with kids, but who do you typically work with now? Like, what is your ideal client that you do work with?
I have an umbrella. So women, moms, teens. Right. I spent 15 years working with kids in the school, and I just can't say it enough, right? All it takes is one trusted adult to change the trajectory of a child, right? And that's all it takes, right? So one. And we can be that one, right? And as a mom, we can really have such an impact. And I feel like if we could just band together and lock arms, because we're protective of our children, and through all walks of life, even through seeing women that have gone through substance abuse. It's not that they don't love their kids; it's that they don't love themselves. And so having that understanding really, it gives you a different perspective, right? So I think it is important, to get the woman, if we can. Ideally, this is what I see, right? If we can help a young woman heal prior to having children,
Yes.
that to me, high five, high five, high five, high
I
five,
know.
right? So what you're doing with teenagers is amazing, right? Because that's so important, right? So because from that epigenetic component of it too, right? We can pass some of this stuff on. So ideally, that would be right the place to start. But working with women to help other women to show that we can heal this. We can lock our arms together. We can say, you know what? I used to hear, not my kid, not my problem, but it is our kids. They are our problem, all of them, even if they aren't biologically yours. We have an impact, and I just feel like we can come together and just tackle this. So it excites me. It sets my soul on fire, because I believe we're coming from such a loving space that this healing we started, started with the women, started with the kids, like it's just it's so beautiful to me.
I love it. I love what you just said. It got me goosebumps because I feel like moms are the most untapped resource on this planet.
Oh, goosebumps. Oh.
I know, right? There's so much power that we have. We have so much power, and we don't know it, or we don't use it, or we don't know how. Like, we just don't know what we don't know. And I think, like, I'm starting to see, the way I've impacted my clients, who are headed on this different trajectory, or, I look back at my own path and I thought, oh man, if only I had a coach, when I was 13 years old, and I was so insecure, so critical of myself. And I brought that negative dialogue, log that I had in my head to my adulthood. And I brought that to a marriage, and, all the unhealthy stuff. And I'm like, we can be, so like, I feel like we're like we are the emotional mothership, of this. I just made that up. Right? Like, we're kind of, in a family, typically, the moms are, the head of the household as far as emotions go,
Mm-hmm.
and we can be leaders in this. Like, we can help people.
Yeah.
We can reach out, and like you said at the very beginning of this, you said there's no like a negative emotion doesn't mean it's a bad emotion. Like, for me, you said it's just information, and I agree. It's just like it's a signal that something needs attention. That's all we know that needs. Okay, so we are just about out of time. So, Karine, how can people find you after today? Because you're just like literally a wealth of knowledge. I feel like I'm just getting so excited at the end here because we're running out of time and I want to hear more.
Yeah, I know.
How can people find you after today?
They can find me on Instagram at it's Karine_Zuleger, or my website is it's KarineZuleger.com.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, last thing, like if you had to give one piece of advice to a mom who's struggling today, right now, what could be that one thing she could do?
I want her to look in the mirror. I want her to look eyeball to eyeball. I want her to take her hands in her face in her hands, and I want her to say her name. So, Karine, I love you, and smile.
Mm-hmm.
Then celebrate it. Pat back, shake your booty, put some good music on, and shake it around. Yeah, it just start there. Remind yourself, I am the love of my life. And it starts here, right? We want to set that example for our children. We want to show them healthy ways to deal with our emotions, right? Because they're there, they're real. We get to acknowledge them. Am I going to go for a walk? Am I going to put on some good music? Am I going to color? Am I going to meditate? Am I going to cook some healthy food? What can I do? Get out in nature. Take a nice warm bath. What can I do? Except besides blow up and lose my cool, right?
Right, exactly, because that is exactly the transformation that we need to be from, like, victims of our state that we're in or our situation or our circumstances to victors and leaders and, having that power back that we need to heal ourselves and be such a great example and role model for our kids. And, okay, well, that's it. Thank you so much, Karine, today for sharing everything and being so vulnerable and open and, sharing your story. Cause I know there's so much more to it we didn't get to touch on today, but you're awesome. I love you. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.